Welcome back to the Motivational Reading Podcast, where we read and review and comment on the latest chapter covered in our motivational reading. And we covered Part 3, Chapter 4, where we learned about principle number 4, begin in a friendly way. The title of the chapter starts with a drop of honey. In the chapter, Mr. Carnegie starts off with a story. Like he always does, he loves to give real-life examples. And the story I'm going to share with you today is about the miners' strike. In 1915, John D. Rockefeller Jr. was the most fiercely despised man in Colorado. This was during one of the most bloodiest strikes in American industry. And it was the miners versus the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, which Rockefeller led. The miners were fighting for better wages, and there were a lot of gunshots involved, and troops were actually called in to try to make it peaceful. It's pretty crazy. Mr. Rockefeller got involved, and he went there and he spent weeks making friends in the field before addressing the strike representatives. And in one of his most famous speeches ever given, he calmed the severe waves of hatred and ended up winning admiration of many. His speech presented facts in such a friendly manner that, to the surprise of many, the workers all went back to work without complaint. It was actually a really superb example of making friends out of your enemies. So how was Rockefeller able to do that? Even though everyone pretty much in Colorado at that time hated him. Well, when he went there, he didn't speak of what his wants were. He didn't argue. A lot of these principles that we've covered so far in this book. And he also spent weeks in advance making friends in the field. He visited the homes of the workers. He met with their families, their wives, and their children. And he did it genuinely. He didn't do this out of spite or trying to get something in a devious manner. He was genuine in his approach, in his friendly approach. And one interesting comment that he actually made in his speech, which really kind of reflects how you can see how successful he was. He said, "It is only by your courtesy that I am here," and that was him speaking to the strike representatives. This is just a really good example of how he started this speech and this motion of moving to a compromise between the mining company and the workers to come to a compromise. Rockefeller began in a friendly way. So when you're going to a meeting, or going to go ask for a favor to a friend, or going to make some particular ask or request for information, how do you begin in a friendly way? Well, I'd like to start off with a couple of examples that I've used in the past. And thinking about this morning, I thought about these three. So number one, I like to begin meetings, the business meetings, by asking specifically about people's accomplishments or private happenings. Like I know that a lot of people will say on a Monday or a Tuesday when they haven't seen anyone over the weekend, they'll start off by saying, "Hey, so how was your weekend?" And it's really lighthearted and not really. It's just a time filler, right? But I like to ask specifics about something that I might have remembered that they told me. So, for example, I'll say, "Hey, Jennifer, how's it going with your house, honey?" Or, "Angela, how did the meeting go with IT last Thursday?" So specifics like that, just to let them know that I'm paying attention and and genuinely caring about what they have been doing, rather than making it really general. Number two example I have for you is that for informational interviews, something I've been doing quite a bit recently with my job search is really being lavish in my gratitude for their time right there in the beginning. Just really thanking that person for interrupting their busy day to give me 30 minutes to have this informational interview. And I'll be really lavish multiple times throughout the duration of the informational interview, especially at the beginning and the end, and in a thank you note as well as in my follow-up. And the third example here is starting with a comment of gratitude for something that person had advised me on or helped me with previously. So an example is maybe meeting with one of the team members and saying, and this is an actual example where I told this gentleman, "Thank you for that Excel tip that you gave me." And he was a lot younger than me, probably 25, 30 years younger than me. And I consider myself pretty good at Excel. but the younger generation, it seems like they're learning a lot more interesting tips and tricks that are becoming available in recent versions of Excel. And this gentleman gave me a tip that really did save me a lot of time. So the example I said here was, thanks for that tip, that Excel tip in our last one-on-one meeting. It literally saved me an hour. And then, like I said, that's an absolute true story. So what examples do you have? Can you put some comments in the comment section of the video? I would really love to be able to see those and possibly share them in a future video. So here are some other examples that I've found that I'd like to share with you on beginning in a friendly way. Whether when you're going into a meeting or you're placing a particular ask, that in that meeting you're going to be requesting some kind of information or a task for the team to do. How can you start those things off positively in a friendly way? And number one here is start off with warm greetings and personal connection. And what that does is it really creates a relaxed and warming atmosphere. Number two is having positive acknowledgement. Acknowledge recent achievements or efforts made by the participants. Saying really how much you appreciate the hard work everyone has put in towards a recent project, for example. What this does is it shows that you value and recognize their contributions. And then lastly, presenting an agenda with enthusiasm. Not many people are excited for lengthy meetings, and if you come in there with a sense of enthusiasm, that might get everyone excited and willing to participate, giving a sense of positivity, letting them know that, hey, I have some great topics for us to discuss. Another example is telling the people on the call that you have some new opportunities for collaboration. What these three tips may do, and what I hope that they will do for you, I've seen these examples come to fruition in my experience, encourages collaboration and makes it easier to request action or information from the participants of the meeting. So that comes to the end of our chapter review of part 3 of How to Win Friends and Influence People, which started off with a drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. And by the way, that is a quote from Abraham Lincoln. And gall, by the way, is just a gallon of unhappiness and unsweetness. Just think of something nasty. Right? And just a really quick recap on all the principles that we've studied so far in this part 3 of How to Win Friends and Influence People. Our principle number 1, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Principle number 2, show respect for the other person's opinion. Never say you're wrong. Principle number 3, if you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. And the principle that we studied today, principle number 4, begin in a friendly way. Thank you all for listening, and I hope that you join on the next.